Welcome, one and all, folks, to the Fillmore Central Bond Vote live stream discussion here on Big Buckin' Empire. We are glad that you have all decided to join us this evening. My name is Phil KOE of KOE Nation on YouTube. I am glad that you have come here, and we are here to discuss one of the central issues of Fillmore County. Now, before we get into all of the various festivities, of course, I am Phil KOE. This is my indomitable broadcast partner, the one, the only, Tony G. How we doing, T?
Lovely. Yeah, it's cold and my knee hurts. So great night.
Well, but the trees are green behind you there, T.
I know. I've been watering them all winter. I feel like maybe the sky is a little deceiving. It's like -3 out right now, and I think the sun went down, but this is clearly just an optical illusion. I'm obviously right here front and center of the high school, out
Obviously.
here.
Clearly.
I wish the traffic off of the highway would keep it down. I'm sorry.
I know. Now, I'm glad that you had that there, because the central issue before us is going to be a bond vote in Fillmore County to, in essence, this is going to be something that divides our community before I get into the true conflict. Because
I don't think it's gonna be. I think it just is very, very deeply right now.
yes, it is, but that's a very good way of putting it. But for the folks that are for and the folks that are against, we're gonna get into, and all of you, your voices will be heard. Let us know in the comments what you think. We will give everybody their fair day in court, if you will. But for both sides, for and against, I want you to keep something before your mind before we get into this, and it is Romans 12, verse 1 and 2. Just very quickly. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. And I bring that up because at the end of this, Tony, sacrifices will have to be made. Okay, regardless of how we want to look at it, there will be sacrifices made, and it just depends on who's being asked to sacrifice what and how. Because the reality is, Tony, all of our options are bad. We don't have good options. Like, to imply that there's some good, perfect option is basically a fantasy at this point, because
none of us are going to win the lottery and be able to just donate to the cause and cover the ground.
Whoa! Speak for yourself, sir.
Yeah, I do my part. I buy a ticket every week. I was about to say, I'm trying here.
So everyone within the sound of our voice, you keep on picking up one scratchy lottery a week, and we'll see if that helps. But spare that. We're looking at two options here, and I think we need to be very cold and rational about these options. It's a yes vote for a bond, for a $48.5 million bond to construct an entirely new middle school and to basically give a fresh, like almost a flip my house of what's left of the old high school and making it a new facility. The cost, though, is going to be the closing of the Fairmont facility. And that we'll get into everything that implies there. The other side is what's being projected is a $51 million maintenance cost over 20 years as opposed to 30 years for the bond. This maintenance cost is going to be basically upkeep of the facilities we have without really bringing them into any newer standards. So what we have here is we can keep what we have and we can keep the Fairmont school going, but nothing's going to get improved. We're basically just going to stay in a holding pattern. And so that's what I mean when all of our options are bad ones. Now, Tony, I have to ask you, how exactly did we get here?
So first off, we've got our first comment here asking a question. I want to address that really quickly. What options are there besides the bond? Asked Michelle. And unfortunately, those are your options, like Phil just said. You can vote yes. and we can try to see this through and make a bunch of new improvements on the existing high school, or you can vote no, and we can just continue putting money into something that we know is going to need a lot of repair and upgrading just to be compliant. And I think that's important to note here, because it's not like we can just wish it into existence where deterioration doesn't happen. I know, I wish in one hand, want in the other. Unfortunately, these are things that will have to be addressed, whether that's now, 3 years, 5, 10. That I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a maintenance person.
Before we move on from this comment, and by the way, hi Michelle. I will say I did some research. Now it's a Hail Mary pass, but there are some schools that do occasionally they do actually qualify for what's known as the Nebraska Education Improvement Fund, but you have to be competitive in that. Like there has to be a competitive reason for them to get. And so that's why I said, now let's be frank, that's by competitive, that means be in Lincoln or Omaha. That's the unfortunate reality of it. So like while it's possible, it's not probable.
We're going to address this probably more in depth, like as we go along. And we'll just say right at the beginning, Dalen says the cost will be $86.4 million total, including interest. That's factoring in the $48.8 million bond voting issue, right?
Yeah. Now, if you're running 48 million through a simple amortization chart, yes, that is actually what you would arrive at, is about 80.
Yeah, I thought you had closer to 75 million when you were running the numbers originally.
When I did, I was assuming like a 3.5% interest. I think the actual interest is like 4 point something. But now here's the thing. I actually asked T, you remember the guy's name that we talked to? What was it?
Well, we visited with Chad Engel after.
Okay.
Who's on the school board after the meeting at the middle school on Sunday.
Okay, I couldn't remember his last name. That's why I didn't mention him on Facebook, because I didn't want to, but basically the way he's talking about it is if anybody that runs a business, it's basically going to be like an operating note where as you go, you loan 8 million, then 2 million, then 6 million, then 5, and then those all have. And so
that's also important to note, because you're not looking at, you're not I think that's probably one of the misconceptions with the number of the 48.8. They're not going to go.
His number is both
that.
Yes and no. That's the best.
They're not going to take the 48.8 million and put that in one bond and get it all in one lump sum at one time. That's not going to happen. Essentially, the way I was informed was about 20 million is going to go towards the initial construction costs of the first step. So you're looking a little less than half of it on the first bond they take out of this money that would be granted through this. So it's... Yes, there will be interest, and yes, construction is going to be met with a certain window, and if it's not met, you could be looking at other interest fees there, and that's a different thing. And I
just got an inside track. I got from an unnamed source. Someone close to the issue just sent me the 51 million is not just paint. It includes replacements of entire systems, HVAC, electrical, just an FYI will maintenance. So when I get those inside track messages, folks, I'll let you know. But here's so anyways, folks are saying it's going to cost this. It's going to be somewhere in between the 48 and the 75.
Yeah.
Truth be told. And
that's what it is, because I'll be honest, you can say all day, well, what they want to get up to is 48.8 million, right? That would be the max number. Sure. We're not going to get there. If we pass this, and that's fine, we're probably going to use as much of it as we can to make these improvements. And we all know right now that the cost of building is absolutely astronomical, and it's not going to go down anytime soon, not quickly anyway. Because I was talking today with someone who was telling me how, I can't remember what school it was, it's around this area, just built a new K through 12 building, okay? And the cost of that was somewhere around $30-some million, because they got it in before COVID, and they started that process before COVID. So take that concept and put it to today, which what we've seen with the economy in the last 4 years, plus post-COVID life, with the cost of materials now, it's going to be high no matter what. Like, we're not going to be seeing it come down anytime within a year if we sideline this for a minute. And that's also going to go for the maintenance costs too, with that 50 million number. Now, we can debate all day about what the actual number of It is to maintain natural things that we're going to have to look at in the next 10 to 20 years. What we would absolutely need to upgrade just to be compliant with state laws, whatever. It's still going to be a lot of money. Even if we don't hit that 50 million, it's probably going to be a lot closer than you think. And yeah, like they said, it's not paint. It's not just paint, obviously.
Yeah. Well, now, just between you and me, I'm not gonna name names, but I do have some family that has actually gone through that middle school. Okay, and they were saying that, yeah, that thing's falling apart. I'm afraid the ceiling's gonna fall on me someday. It's
well,
like,
they showed us
I
pictures
didn't know
of
that.
some. Yeah, they showed us pictures.
I
of
just
it at
found
the
that out
board
this
meeting.
afternoon.
Well,
Like that was one of those,
there's cracks in the walls where they've put up joists to hold it from falling within itself. I mean,
yeah.
you can't ignore that. And yeah, we've
Now-
gotten 25 years of that building from the consolidation so far. Like the middle school, and I don't know what we're looking at in terms of spending every year on the middle school to upkeep it or maintain things like that from falling apart, but that's really neither here nor there. We've gotten 25 years of it out of the consolidation that happened in 99, 2000. So that's nothing to sneeze at, considering, I believe, Exeter didn't even want anything to do with the building if they would have taken the consolidation.
Now, I want to address this comment here, and I want to give it I'm going to read it plainly as it says.
Go ahead.
This says they said it would cost $2.88 million per year for 30 years at the meeting. That's $86.4 million total. It may not end up being that high, but it will end up costing much more than $48.8 million they keep putting out there as a number. Let's just be upfront about that. And here's the thing. I actually agree with you. I think we need to just be cold and rational about what the final numbers are going to be. Now, it's not going to be 86. Let's be frank. Because it's going to be working like an operating note, it's going to be somewhere a little less than my 75 figure. Just because that's the way. And when you take just a straight amortization chart, you're 100% correct, but it's going to work a little different than that. So what I am going to say is, here's the real cost. The real cost here is, and this is something that Tony and I have been kind of joking around about, and I'm going to let you folks in on the joke here. Where the real cost is when any small town in this area loses its school, like Grafton, for example, it lost a third of its population after losing its school. And the same could very much happen to Fairmont. And I was like, guys, what are we doing to Fairmont? We're going to get rid are we really doing this to Fairmont? And then Tony at one point had to bring up, Phil, you'll notice the local Fairmont local government isn't as loud as you are trying to save Fairmont. You've done more in 3 days to save Fairmont than Fairmont's done to save Fairmont.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but the citizens of Fairmont are obviously very
joke,
concerned.
Okay,
that's the joke, right?
The citizens are. Where's their government? Okay, that's a legitimate question. But what we have before us as a community, we have to decide. Like, Geneva has a potential for actual population growth. It's been the only town in our county that's been static in its population across 25 years. So that's the unfortunate reality of this. I'll let you read this one, T.
Trevor says, so why have we been ignoring it for the last few years and not keeping up the buildings? The cost of fixing 10 years ago would have been cheaper than they are 2 years from now. If we're talking just in the general maintenance, then I can't speak. I don't know. I've talked to a few people who've done maintenance at the school, and there's probably some conflicting ideas on this. But I think probably the biggest thing that we're looking at here is going to be HVAC. I know that's obviously always going to be a big concern because we know that is a massive cost.
Millions.
So take the bond out of it completely. The HVAC alone is going to be a big cost and a big reason that number is 50 million if we do not pass the bond. So, and we can't just stop there, because once you tear into the HVAC, you're going to be tearing into the electrical. And if you tear into the electrical, because you can't start in one thing, it's going to be a domino effect. Like, that's just how these things work. That's how buildings work. You tear into that, you're going to tear into the electrical. And I believe we're grandfathered into some things to where it's okay to not be compliant if build before this, if you have this. So if we start changing one thing, you're going to be changing a whole lot of other things. And that's why that cost starts building up, regardless of a bond passing or not.
Now, that's the unfortunate thing, is that we now sit in a place where everything's more expensive just due to the nature of our economy. Yeah. And folks are like, first we do have to ask Tony, where's your hat?
It's over here.
Okay.
This is more serious than our typical, much more lighthearted live streams.
Yes, because like we're talking about our local politics. We're talking about the fate of towns, basically.
Yes.
At this point now.
About as serious as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, like, the reality is that facility is, from everybody I've talked to, they're not really all that high on the middle school facility. Okay, like
it's not the lowest of the totem pole, that's for sure. That would go to the honors of the downtown gym in Geneva, which is. I'll say it outright. I know they said it several times at the board meeting. We haven't ignored things on purpose. No, that's true. I'm sure this board hasn't. I'm sure the few previous boards hadn't. But like when my dad and my uncle went to Geneva High School, the downtown gym was already falling within itself. I mean, they were disgusting locker rooms then. And when you and I were still in school 20 some years ago, Phil, you couldn't really use the plumbing in the locker room areas. I think you still had a couple of toilets operational. Now, when my kids go there for basketball, there's nothing down there that works that I'm aware of. There's like one bathroom in the entrance that's operational. So it's in such bad. It's been so bad. I think I've been told by a few people that it got to a point where you couldn't do anything with the plumbing. It was so bad.
Yeah.
So to say one thing hasn't been ignored, well, that building's kind of gotten really ignored, whether it was on purpose or not. You be the judge, but there it sits, and we do still use this thing. That's the truth. We use this building probably now more than we did in the last 10, 20, 15 years.
He might have the comment of the night here when he says, yeah, the downtown gym needs Jesus.
I don't. Jesus can only do so much, Phil.
Jesus can move mountains, but this is something that is going to require the good works of our hands.
In terms of a playing surface, it works just fine, and the bleachers still roll out. You've got a surface, and that's kind of the point here, and that's another reason why we've got this gymnasium upgrade.
This is something that needs to be said, because there's people that are going to be for and against this. And we need to remember, regardless of who wins, we're still a community when this is all said and done. We're all still going to be each other's neighbors, and it's going to be our kids using these facilities, regardless of who wins. So I'm going to say to the farmers and the people who are going to vote against this, if this ends up passing, you cannot fault the community at large for trying to find a way for us to survive. Okay? Like, this is one of the ways, like, having a good competitive school system is one of the ways that a community can survive and thrive in the very sparsely populated Midwest. Now, to the people who support this bond issue, if it ultimately fails, you cannot blame farmers for ultimately rejecting what they see on the face of as being a tax increase. That's just it's an American impulse. You can't begrudge that. But regardless of who ends up winning, we're all still going to be neighbors, and we're still going to have to find solutions to all this. So I'm glad that we're not doing the sort of like we're angry at each other and yelling and cursing at each other like they do in the big cities, because this is our home and we are better than that. Okay. And so that's the one thing I want to keep in mind. And given all that, how did we arrive here?
Okay. So we're going to just go ahead and I'm going to pop this up. This is directly off
Michelle, as far as I know, there's been contractors that have given us estimates, and that's as far as I can give you.
So this is actually off of the Fillmore Central Bond website, and I'm just going to go ahead and skim through this here because, like the bond or not, that's not really the point here. This is actually good information. If you haven't taken the time to at least go to the website and read through some of this, or go to a meeting, and because they go over all this at every meeting, so it's still good information to have regardless. Fillmore Central Board of Education hired BVH in February of 23 to conduct an initial facilities audit of the district. I'll stop there. There are a lot of things that we knew probably needed attention without any outside contractors. We spent money on this. Take that as you will. That's fine. It's done. It's over. We need to upgrade some stuff. Now we know. Okay. There were two parts of this audit. BVH went through each building and building system and met with staff to listen and gather input on the current alignment within the facilities. held 3 community meetings during which presented the findings, comprehensive facility audit, and the educational alignment study. Studies have identified critical needs within their school facilities and proposed potential solutions to meet those. Throughout the course of the 3 meetings, they asked community feedback through 2 surveys. BVH Architecture adjusted the draft solutions based on the feedback they received from the surveys and the community meetings. In December of 24, the Fillmore Central Board of Education approved and adopted a resolution calling for a special election to be held in the district on March 11th of 25, relating to the issuance by the district of its general obligation school buildings bond series 2025 in an amount to not exceed $48.8 million to finance the cost of the constructing certain additions to and renovations of its existing high school building, and in addition to replace the existing middle school gymnasium addition and other building improvements, and for renovations and additions at the elementary school building and related costs there too. So essentially what happened is we brought in outside contractors to look through this and make a guess, because that's what they do. I mean, you can sugarcoat it all you want and say they're experts in their field, but it's a guess. But these are people who work in the industry. They know the cost of materials, they know the cost of labor, they know the cost of building and deadlines and this and that. So to say we're just guesstimating on a whim, that's not entirely accurate either. At least we're bringing in people who, this is what they're paid to do. They damn well better be good at it, right?
Yeah, now always keep in mind, like the reason that there's some skepticism of that is I'm sure you've heard the old joke that there's 3 kinds of lies, damn lies, and government statistics. Okay. And that's why people kind of like are a little like, well, okay, who's to say? Like, to be frank, the way I look at it is that I know that it's been kind of sold to us that like if you vote yes on it, your taxes will be actually a little less because the bond levy or the levy will be moved. I think it's really like, honestly, because the bond's going to be a little more expensive than we think. I honestly think it's like, Tony, as insane as this is, I think we are literally at the point where it is literally you are getting taxed 6 one hand and you're getting taxed half dozen in the other. Like I literally think if you were to really crunch the numbers properly, I think you would arrive that, well, if you vote yes, you're getting taxed 6 in your one hand. If you vote no, you're getting taxed a half dozen in the other one. So unfortunately, it's kind of an issue of, what do you think about Fairmont versus Geneva having a new facility at that point? Like it's
a lot of it is. So let's go back to the comments here. Damlin's got a couple. The insiders I've spoken to say that the middle school has many more years left in her. I'm sure that's probably true, but to just say, yeah, it's fine as it is, that's not accurate. I'm sorry, it's not. It's going to take, I don't know. I honestly, I don't think I've gotten a concrete number on what is the actual time window we're looking at that we think we can keep this school operational without massive amounts of upgrades. I don't know.
I was in this camp until I spoke to some students who actually went through that facility over years and like did their entire middle school there, and they're like, no, that place, there's parts of the building we're afraid that the roof's gonna fall on our heads. Are you kidding me? I was like, oh, I
think that, okay, so if we're looking at literally shown pictures and spots in the school where the wall, the concrete is actually coming inside and you have to put in joists in to tighten this up to hold it together, and students are saying the roof is going to fall in. Obviously, there's some major needs. Now, that doesn't mean you can't keep it operational, but there you go. That's what we're adding to the $51 million if the bond doesn't pass. You have to keep this in mind. If you're voting no, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but you've got to think, we have X amount of dollars for a building fund available to the school. And if it's an emergency and we use it all up on one thing because the middle school roof fell in on itself, never mind you the dangers of that with having students in it, which I shouldn't even have to say, then we're up the creek without a paddle.
Ben, it was one of Chicken's cousins, Chicken Little, that I was talking. Maybe that was it. I kid. But all right, next. Wow, that's a lot of comment there. All right, T. Wish me luck at the end of this long journey. I might have a beard. Okay. One of my biggest concerns is that the school board does not appear to have a plan in place for what to do with the middle school once the new facility would be in place. I don't know who would want to buy a middle school in Fairmont, Nebraska. The school isn't falling down, so it's not really a good candidate for bulldozing. Seems like we're just going to be stuck with this building, still having to maintain it more or less for many more years. I'd feel more comfortable voting for this bond if, oh my goodness, there's more. That's all we got, Ben.
I
sorry.
think it trailed off. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, sorry.
It was.
Now, Lacey Kimbrough goes, as alumni of Fillmore Central, I am beyond baffled that any of the buildings are in the shape they currently are. What have the school board members spent money on to upkeep them? New front safety doors at the high school, they swang fine both ways when I was there. Football goals for points never scored, things not needed. From what I can see, money has not been well spent on education. I personally homeschool my kids now because the government school just plain isn't doing its job. And Lacey, God bless you. God bless you. And thanks for the comment, by the way. Kendra Stevens goes, Danlin, Milligan School isn't bulldozed down and still being used. Last I heard, smiley face. And then Michelle Lemke, Kendra Stevens, I believe I heard it's in the works to be bulldozed down. Like, wow, the internet. Lynn, 25 years, no upkeep, like it was planned. All right, we got our first conspiracy theory. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Mad Winner. Rumor has it Fairmont won't buy it.
Well, okay, let's just stop here now. Here's the thing. You're not going to be able to sell a building while a bond issue is going on, voting yes or no whether to keep it operational. You could have an interested party, but there's not going to be any agreement on whether or not that building exchanges hands one way or the other while a vote is literally not yet taken place. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the case.
That's just not going to happen.
That apparently there's some interested party in the downtown gym that
and that's
will buy it if the bond passes. If it doesn't, you don't want
you
it.
can't write up a contract that way. You can't exchange the title of something. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way. So to say there's no plan, I'm sorry. There's no way there are no plans for either of these buildings, regardless of the outcome. Like, I'm sure this has been thought out very, very thoroughly. And even if they're not saying exactly what they are, because you can't really divulge information if you don't know what's going to happen, so be it. Like, again, keep in mind, being on the school board and making these kinds of decisions, it's a thankless position, and you're never going to make everybody happy.
Yeah. Michelle goes, I agree with Danlin. If there was a plan for the middle school, I'd feel better. Hopefully sell building materials to help pay for the bond. I understand the sentiment, but like Tony said, like you kind of have to, this matter has to be settled one way or the other before we can get a buyer for that. So,
and I would say, honestly, at this point, if you're probably looking, you're probably going to be looking at a scenario. If I had to guess, if the bond passes and the middle school is taken out of rotation, which, mind you, if this passes and the middle school is eliminated from the facilities, it's not going to be eliminated for another 2 to 4 years. It's still going to be used while the upgrades are happening. So it's not like it's going to be poof, it's gone, it's sold, we're done with it. So if the bond passes, we're still going to be using it for several years before this thing goes through and the upgrades are completed.
Now, let's hit a few more. I'll hit some more comments. Melinda goes, the Fillmore Central school system needs work, not just the buildings. A lot of kids opt out of Fillmore Central because if you don't have a name, the school don't care. Ooh, okay. Now that's more of a faculty issue, which we could get into that a little later. But that small towns always do have the small town politic. I'll give you that. Trust me. I encountered similar things, but that's kind of a broad sweeping statement. Let's see. Let's put 50 million in the downtown gym. Wow.
I think Madwiner should just buy it, and then he could open a school in the downtown gym, and there we go.
Kate goes, they can give ideas for the plans for the building, just something else, quote, the public doesn't need to know.
So let's stop here for a second because there is one more school board meeting happening Sunday at
This
2
Sunday.
o'clock. I've got it scrolling down here.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday at 2 o'clock at the high school. There's another board meeting, and they open this up to the public at the end of the presentation. If you can get the mic in your hand, you can ask these questions. I think it's important. And even if you don't, go up after, like we did, and ask questions that you didn't get a chance to on the microphone. Ask them directly. Ask them face to face. Ask them on Facebook if you have to. It doesn't matter. They're willing to talk to you. Like that's
trust me, if you're
there are
loud on
several
Facebook,
school board
will
members willing to
reach
talk
out.
to you about these things if you have questions, and they're going to answer them to the best that they can. I'm not going to tell you you're going to like the answer. They're going to be a complete answer because, again, a lot hinges on whether the vote goes yes or no.
Now, it's be frank, T, like some of the folks on this board, I'm like, oh god, we went to high school with some of these kids.
Yeah,
so now it's like,
fine.
unfortunately, like I don't know how to tell you this, guys. Like, God love them. I don't think the folks we went to high school with are really capable of putting together a high level conspiracy. T, I don't think it's in them. I don't think they have the capacity for it. So,
Kendra follows up. I just spoke to someone local from there, and they said they haven't heard that, and the community is buying it. And it's also been used for dances for school, etc. It wasn't just not used though. I hated when we lived there and thinking my kids driving to 2 different towns, and I can't argue with this line of thinking. Like, unfortunately, when you've got multiple towns of consolidation in one school district, one consolidated school, one of the towns is going to get the hose. And transportation is always going to be a big issue. And I can't stress this enough. It
remember
sucks.
25 years ago when we were told this was the panacea?
Yeah.
Going to solve all of our problems. Just consolidate.
Kendra says, unfortunately, that's a lot of towns. And you know what? That's 1,000% true because there's how many counties in Nebraska and how many small towns and how many consolidated schools now. Yeah, there's a lot. There's always going to be favoritism. There's always going to be conspiracies about that favoritism and last names. And good luck escaping it, no matter where you live. And it's unfortunate.
Now, in terms of consolidation and taking over more districts, I remember there's jokes years ago when Omaha kept like expanding its school district. People were saying like, how soon before the Omaha Public School District has overtaken Chimney Rock? But like Tanara Rust goes, we are going to turn the Fairmont School into an auditorium that we can't build with the current bond proposed. I heard it on the internet. Well, if it's on the internet, it's got to be true, Tanara. Like, goodness knows.
Well, the thing about the auditorium, I think, was asked pretty directly at the school board meeting on Sunday was, what about that planned auditorium? Which it's not in the current bond proposed, like she just said. So that's one of those wishes. Okay, so if you remember several years ago when we were looking at the additions of another gymnasium and a school wrestling workout area, wrestling arena, it got voted down several times, but it had a lot of wishes on that first go around, right? Like, let's see what we can get. Well, then they had to kind of back off on what the bond and the vote would get for a yes vote. And eventually what was settled on came out of the building funds. And we got the wrestling room. They ended up moving the weight room facilities into that new addition. And the ag, I believe the ag and the woodwork kind of took over that old wrestling or weight room area. And it mostly came out of the building funds. But an auditorium this time around, they didn't just throw that number in there and go, well, we're asking for $100 million, because the number was already pretty damn high. So they're like, well, we can talk about it, but we're not going to factor that into this $48.8 million. So no, an auditorium's not in the cards for this, because I think they knew, look, we're already asking a lot. Can we really ask that too?
I was about to say, the auditorium turning the old Fairmont School or something into it, that's a side project. That's 100%. Because like, if we do get rid of the downtown gym, for example, or if somebody buys it, hey, now that's that was speculative.
So I guess I want to know exactly what the question being asked is, that they're being told that the public doesn't need to know. because I'll ask every single board member I see, because I'm going to go again on Sunday, and I'll probably have a few more questions, because transparency is absolutely vital. And they even said that transparency needs to be key here. So the question is that's being asked is, what are the plans for this building or that building? I don't know if we're talking about, oh, you just don't need to know, or we can't really explain it, because it all hinges on how this unfolds.
I just want to say, when it comes to transparency, like, okay, like when I first heard about this, I was, I don't think you need to
Good luck.
I don't think you need to know what side I was on when I first heard about this. Then, like, when I heard about the school board and everybody was on it, like when I went to that meeting, all right, there's two people. I'm not going to name them unless they would want to be named, but there's two people on that board that are farmers like me. Okay. Yes. With your whole heart, they did not want to be sitting there in front of the town asking the farmers to accept a higher tax.
Oh, it's got to be incredibly uncomfortable, regardless of being a farmer or not. You're asking all citizens to chip in, and some of them more than their fair share. Yeah, Madwiner says, let's just cut sports and we won't need a bond. That's still funny. Not accurate, because yes, you'll still need to upgrade the buildings at some point. And if you think there's any schools in the state of Nebraska that are going to eliminate sports, I've got some oceanfront property in the state to sell you as well.
Well, we do have admirals in this state.
We do. Let's go to Alex. He says, if the walls are falling, how do you continue to use the building while the new one is being built? How do you sell a building that the walls are falling in? Great question. I would assume that you can kind of well, every time I've seen somebody put in those braces in a basement that's starting to fall in, you can kind of guesstimate how long that's going to hold up.
Yeah, you buy yourself a couple of years with every brace you put up.
Unfortunately, and you cannot put an accurate time frame on how long a building is going to hold up. If there's a structural defect, you just can't. It's impossible. So how can you continue to use the building? Because you don't have a choice. That's really what it boils down to, unless you decide to cram the entire student body into the high school ahead of schedule while repairs and upgrades are still being made, which isn't realistic. We'd have to go back to we'd have to do like we did in kindergarten, Phil, and go have school in the fairgrounds.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
If Melissa we talked to Mr. Westerberg, would make us go stand in the corner.
Yes, and the new science rooms came out of the building funds. There you have
it. Hey, you left, T, but there's like 40 people in the sound of my voice that remember that. They talked when they were down at the fairgrounds. Mr. Westerberg made him stand in the corner. This is just swimming pool 2.0. No, it's not, because swimming pool was basically a local politician trying to use our credit card to give himself a good name, and then he sprungboard himself on out of here, never to be seen or heard from again. This is different. This is actual people that live in this community that are gonna be living with the consequences of this for 30 years. Okay, so that's where this is very, very different. But I'll let you read this.
All right, we've got a ton of comments rolling in. I promise if I don't read it, it's not. I'm not playing favorites. we're gonna fall behind at some point. Honestly, when Fairmont and Geneva consolidated 25 years ago, that was when Fairmont started to go downhill. Probably accurate. The Fairmont community didn't care about their school 25 years ago, and they obviously still don't. McCool is a wonderful small school, and their community actually cares about their school, and you can tell it. I like this comment because that's the thing. When the consolidation happened, obviously the gears were already going to start shifting from Fairmont being the main school there to, well, yeah, you're part of it, but you're graduating in Geneva. So you saw that 25 years ago, obviously. And over the last 25 years, very few businesses have come in and gone. Well, all of them almost have gone, except for a bank branch. The gas station turned from a Cabardello's to a Casey's. We've got an ethanol plant, and obviously the railroad still goes through town. But other than that, there's not a lot of grocery stores happened at least once and closed in Fairmont. And it's hard to sustain a community with things like that happening. Is the middle school moving gonna be the catalyst to just kill the town entirely? Maybe, I don't know, but McCool has a wonderful small school. Yes, they do. And their community actually really cares about their school. That's the thing. McCool is very small. It's very small, and they have a ton of support from the community. So if you want to use McCool as an example of, well, a little town can survive, yeah, it can, but it takes a lot of damn money and support from the community. So
And
keep that in mind.
unfortunately, like I just haven't seen that from Fairmont. Like you were giving me a hard time just yesterday about it. It was like, but anyhow, I'll get this one. $600,000 to $700,000 maintenance cost that we will have if the bond does not pass. What is the maintenance cost after it passes?
Are we talking for what, the just the middle school or the schools in general? Because the maintenance costs are factored into the 48.8.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Trevor. I'm not being obtuse here, but we will need you to give a little more clarification. Would you say?
Maintenance costs, I guess, if we're just talking like routine maintenance costs, I think they may actually have tried to break that down at the board meeting. I don't know if I took a note on that or not, but general maintenance is expected, and with newer equipment, you're looking at lower costs. So that's another way they're expecting and hoping to save some money on a yearly cost with a new building, but you've still got regular maintenance costs. I don't know how much that number would be. If we're talking about how much is it going to be to maintain the middle school while the new middle school is being built, that I don't know. That I
Now,
do not know.
if I can,
But I would assume that would come from the building fund, not the bond. If I could be
one
wrong
thing
about
I'd
that.
like to say, and this would be something that I'm glad they're doing the meeting on this Sunday at 2 p.m. because one thing I would criticize the last meeting for is if you're asking the community for this kind of money, you should the question and answers should be a little longer than 10 minutes. Okay. Like you should be willing to sit there and add, like, really get into the community's questions. And like, if there's anybody that's got a question, you should let them speak. Okay. So
Absolutely.
I would say this one on Sunday, if anybody's in the sound of my voice, give them a good 30-40 minutes of Q&A. Okay. Like that would be my one critique.
This is it's the go home board meeting before the
yeah, it's the go home. So give them a good 45-minute main event. No, I'm kidding. All right.
Kendra says, who moved to McCool for the school? Absolutely love the town and the schooling. I'm sure we'll have to upgrade. I'll happily pay my money to keep this town alive and going as a parent and as a business owner. There you go. Tessa says, what? Fairmont doesn't care. They still pay taxes toward the school. Just absolutely. That's not at all what anybody's saying. As much as Geneva resident to when the consolidation happened, I don't think Fairmont resident intended for the building to go down. Absolutely not. I don't think anybody in Fairmont expected the school to start falling apart, but at the same time, if we're talking about the roof starting to cave in and the walls starting to cave in, like, it's not like that was because they did it intentionally either. So no, and I do want to point out, like, when they're talking about Fairmont, I saw this brought up a few times in the last couple days on Facebook with, well, we could have just, this being from Fairmont point of view, we could have just consolidated with Exeter because we were still doing co-op sports with Exeter. And I believe the proposed consolidation with Exeter was, well, screw Fairmont entirely. We don't want to use your building. And I think that's what led to the consolidation with Geneva, if I remember this correctly. So that building would have been done 25 years ago, if that's all accurate anyway. And who knows what would have happened to it then. Of course, you easily could have sold it 25 years ago for a fraction of the cost it would today. But no, I don't think Fairmont doesn't care. And absolutely, you're still paying towards that school. I don't think that's the case at all. But there are definitely, it's hard to put this gently without sounding just cold. I really wish this concern was here year round and not just when bond issues come up and when we're talking about like closing off sections of Fairmont in terms of the school system, because it sucks because we've added Grafton and Fairmont 25 years ago. Phil, you showed the numbers to me the other day in terms of population and the decline that's had, but they didn't really have a school when they were going to school with Fairmont either. So it was already in decline before the consolidation 25 years ago happened anyway.
And like I said earlier, basically what happened over 25 years is Grafton went from 150 to about 100 people. And so they lost a third of their population. Now, like if this was Philadelphia, that'd be devastating. Like it would be, but now the reason I bring that up is I had an AI do a population study of all of Fillmore County, and every single town has been in some form of decline other than Geneva. Now, Fairmont, we got to be honest with ourselves. I love Fairmont. Like, we've all got memories in Fairmont, but it has been in a steady decline since World War II. It used to be the size of Hastings. And now we're to the point where if they lose a retirement home and a middle school, that might be the end of it. So it's, and so that's why Geneva's kind of like, hey, let's try to survive. But like, I'm not telling you how to vote on here, guys, but this is going to be the question of the next 30 years. See?
The Dawn is asking, does anybody know someone who has someone talk to someone in Utica about their new high school? We were just there for a youth basketball game. I was very impressed with how nice they were. And actually, I think I did talk to somebody today who was just over in that school district. And yeah, it's gorgeous. So if you just care about a shiny new toy, hell yeah, vote yes. But that's not what this is about at the end of the day. And
no.
I don't. It's not even. I don't even think that this is an issue of we're keeping up with the Joneses. We're gonna be building a new building eventually. We can argue semantics over the time frame of that all we want, but eventually a new building is going to be built. I mean, just keep that in mind. That's going to happen eventually. Danlin, what if the bond pass in the HVAC system at the middle school goes out before it's completed? We then have to replace that anyway on top of the new building. Not sure how bad this HVAC system actually is, but I'd hate to see that scenario. I'm not sure exactly what state the HVAC in the middle school is. If somebody does, please do let me know. But the way I understood it, I think the biggest HVAC concern is actually the one in the high school from the people I've talked to. Like if we're looking at one that's going to be going out in the next however many years, I think the first one to go would actually be the high school. And again,
like, I'll
electrical and grandfathering in with additions and stuff. It's a whole can of worms. There's a lot of money there that's going to have to go into it. So
Tony's
but the middle school, I don't know. I'd love to hear.
Tony's going to be our resident HVAC expert in regards to what's going on with this.
Yeah, if only I would have known how important HVAC was 20 years ago.
Man, I was about to say, apparently your whole community hinges on it. Apparently one of us should have been an HVAC repairman. We'd have flown in like Superman. Like,
tell me about it.
Anyhow,
Panera, I would be interested in those who are favored because of their name. I mean, that's one of those. That's one of those lists that's going to change depending on who you talk to.
I was about to say, like, what's funny is back in high school, people would have swore I was on that list, and I was like, trust me, no, I'd like to get a lit. No, I was never on that list. I was on the teacher's crap list. You kidding me? Mr. Commenda loved me.
No. Michelle asked, so the Fairmont School is only 25 years old. Am I reading that? No. How did that work? The addition, I think, on the middle school is one of the newer portions in rotation of the schools, but the original building is one of the oldest. So you're part of it is like pretty new, and the other part is like super old. So I think that's probably where the confusion there is.
Now, new as in it was built like after the Reagan administration?
No, I think the actual addition is fairly new and recent. I'm sure we could look that up quick. Maybe our producer could get me some year numbers on that.
Break the walls down.
Alicia says, building fund, yes, not for education. Exactly what I was talking about. Money was spent on stupid instead of taking care of the buildings, mainly not taking care of Fairmont, because now the walls and ceilings are collapsing. Money spent time and time again is being spent on the high school. This has been their plan from the beginning of consolidation.
That's the unfortunate reality of consolidation is... this is the unfortunate end result of it is that basically you got to pick your central hive, and that's got to be the thing that you keep going at all costs. Now, again,
so what are we like? We're not using the building fund for education. So how do we use the building fund for education? Because if we're talking about like we can't like buy teachers that way, or are we talking about can we improve the classrooms? Well, that was an interesting point brought up at the school board meeting on Sunday. Was the elementary rooms have 2 outlets, And in 2025, you have every student with an iPad learning on devices and electronics. Yeah, electronics take electricity. And if you have 2 or 3 outlets in a room, the building fund is kind of going towards education at that point. It's just disguised as electrical work. So I'm not trying to shoot this down at all, but
yeah, as much as I hate
you can make it evil if you want, but
we're not going to make the next great AI breakthrough in this country with 2 outlets per classroom. I don't know how else to put that. Tanera Rust.
Yes, Tanera, I would, and I would be all warm and gooey
dog,
delicious.
Would you eat yourself? That's
thank you.
This is
that
the high level content
day.
you come to Big Buck. I got this one. Oh, FYI, I was from York. They pushed for a new middle school. They got it and had to fight on repairs on the roof and the foundation. Don't they? Cough, cough. Good school program in McCool. Well, okay, but that school program, like Tony says, that comes downriver from community support. The community is just enthusiastic about McCool. And that's...
Hey, Phil, where do you live?
I live in a little town called Shickley.
And why do you live in Shickley?
Because there's a really good school here, was the reason I bought the house.
So what would happen if one day the community of Shickley said, hey, we need a new school?
A handful of the insanely wealthy patrons would come together and just make that happen.
Oh, so they wouldn't have to worry about a bond.
I know I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah.
No, you're not.
The levy here is actually way higher because the taxpayers here just deal with it. They're just okay with it and they don't push back on it. And like, because I was talking to one of the school board members, and yeah, our levy is like in the 50s. Theirs is in the 80s. Okay, so they just like, yeah, that's Danlin goes, yeah, longer Q&A would be appreciated, and I do think that's necessary.
Absolutely.
Tanera
Hopefully they're anticipating that.
Fillmore County also has free preschool. Let's not forget that.
That's nothing to sneeze at. I'm enjoying that right now. It's not all week, but and I didn't go to preschool, whatever, 50 years ago it feels like already, but it's kind of a nice introductory thing too. So that is a nice bonus. Follows up, Fillmore Central also has that's already
sheesh.
That school is just add-ons for 40 years. I believe we're talking about Fairmont. So I'm not sure, honestly. Lacey says that is since consolidation. Is that the... I think she's following up on her original comment.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Melissa says, I think 1961 and 1981. So we're talking the original building plus the add-on. Is that okay?
I believe so.
Go ahead, Phil. Follow up with your
no child left behind. Individual results may vary. That's unfortunate. Rachel Reed says, I think the new part of the building was 1981. So the beginning of the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
So that was the new part of the building was the beginning of the Reagan administration.
Tracy says, I don't understand why this all happened. Who was in charge of upkeep? Again, this isn't like this came out of nowhere. This is my thing. If we would have, okay, let's go back to when the bond for the wrestling room and the second gymnasium and that all happened, right? They wanted to add a new gymnasium then. So if that bond would have passed and that gym would have been installed and we would have gotten that gymnasium back then in 10 years ago or so, that wouldn't be part of this bond now, and we'd be saving the number would probably be 30 million maybe max is what we'd be looking at now, because we'd already have that gym. Now what we're looking at is a second gymnasium with 2 full-length courts and a divider in between so they can hold tournaments. And I know the people who hate sports or think sports are just the fucking bastion of evil in terms of the school system. Good luck getting rid of that. You've got 50 states with counties in each of them to try to eliminate that evil. You do you. It's an important thing, hosting tournaments, especially with a consolidated school group. It's kind of a big deal. And believe you me, the more I go to and the more older my kids get, the more of these things I'm going to go to. And guess what? It's a lot of money just parent to parent just to walk into these things. So, yeah, it's a good chunk of change.
Here in Shickley, we actually host basketball tournaments because we have multiple basketball courts because it's easier to do that there. Michelle.
Yeah, we're trying to keep up. There's just a lot rolling in at once.
Well, we're wanting to give everybody their fair day here because everybody should be heard. And this is folks, this is your community. Okay. And like we got a lot more we're gonna get into, but first we gotta get through these comments. Wrestling room and gyms
are not for no, they're not. They're for the extracurricular activities.
Yeah, and I understand
they're going to come out of the building fund. Absolutely.
That's the frustrating part is like, now tell you, you're right. We're not going to get rid of sports, but it is sort of a frustrating thing that now like the sports is often more emphasized than the actual education. And that's something that we're not going to solve that problem here today, but I certainly understand that frustration, Lacey. All right, next comment.
No, you can understand I get it, but again, we're also looking at, can we renovate an entire electrical system with the building fund? Or is it going to be cheaper to just start fresh?
Unfortunately,
these are unfortunate questions, and you might not like the answer. I know I'm not a huge fan of the idea of we have to build completely new to avoid problems down the road. So it sucks, but it is what it is. Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current high school was built. It was designed for classes of 150 per grade. So now we need to build even bigger for smaller classes. I've had family members go to the old high school and they said class sizes were massive. So the decrease in size means bigger classrooms. I don't.
Well, if you have a larger facility, you can accommodate both. I think is the thinking. Like I'm not sure. I'm not on the county.
Can't predict.
I'm not on the board here. I'm just trying to give them their.
It's kind of hard to predict class size. Actually, I talked to somebody about this the other day.
Yeah, we were a huge class size too.
Yeah, we had almost 60 kids in our class, and now the last couple years,
blizzard that winter.
Like my brother, when he graduated in 2020, is a really small class. I'm not sure if it was 20. It was close to. But I think those numbers have come up since then. I think this is a bigger class, a way bigger class than that in 2025. My youngest sister's graduating this year. So, I think the numbers have gone up. And if I'm looking across the board, like right now, like our class, 2004, Phil, I thought I was going to be an old parent out on an island by myself. But a lot of our class had a lot of kids around the exact same time. So there's a pretty strong chance we're going to have a pretty good sized class here in another 9 years or so. So it's really hard to predict the size of classes. You can't just plan ahead for that.
I mean, is what it is. You can tell how like long storms there are over the winter. And that'll give you a general idea of how big the class is going to be, because how long were the parents forced to stay in the same building with each other? Like, oh, okay. What do you know? 9 months later, I kid.
This is one of those things, Melissa. How many students do we bus to Fairmont? And how many would be bused to Geneva if the middle school was there? This is one of those things they factored into what they were saying was going to save. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the number was like 800,000, at least yearly. I'm going to try to pop up this number because I tried to keep this feasibility in 2020. We could save $800K a year if the middle school was in Geneva. So that initial audit said we could save $800K a year. And I know that the transportation costs were factored into that number. So that's the best I can. And again, that's going to change on a year-to-year basis. So I'm not 100% sure on that. Go ahead, Phil.
Meg goes, as an outsider considering moving home, I'm all for economic and community growth. Does this addition tax put Geneva on the higher end of taxes comparing to similar sized towns in the area? Higher taxes could deter people from wanting to move to Geneva and stunt that allow me. Okay. Folks in town and with larger homes with multiple properties, you will be paying a few hundred more, anywhere from $200 to $400 more a year in your taxes. Worry not, because the solution to this is kind of like whenever there's a problem in Omaha, the folks there, they always say, well, why doesn't Uncle Warren just pay for it? And they're talking about Warren Buffett. Now, whenever there's an issue of any kind around here, why doesn't Farmer Brown just pay for it? And so, yeah, worry not. If this bond passes, Farmer Brown will pay for it.
Let's follow up. Megan, McCool hosts a yearly event that brings money in for the school. I was a graduate from McCool, now teach for FC. McCool has so many members from the community that will give whatever amount of money they need. And yeah, there you go. It's if you can get a community that's got the funds to do it and be willing to donate, it's a huge what a burden that takes off of the community. I mean, because McCool's not even how big compared to Geneva? It's not even comparable, but
it's not even 1,000.
Yeah, but there you have it, and it's a very well respected, not just school district, but educational school. So I hear nothing but good things. When I was
house shopping, McCool was considered.
There you go,
because of their school system. So, Mad Winner. So people are willing to pay for a new building when the school is good. Shock.
Good at what? Sports or
education.
Education, and that's fine, and that's great. You can make the argument then that if you're gonna put a vote out there that says no, we're not going to give you a school, then why would you get a good teacher here? And how do you measure a good teacher? And how many of those teachers that you're putting on a grade scale are bad teachers because you say so, or bad teachers because a lot of people say so? That kind of goes onto that you're safe if you have a name list. Alex follows up. How many kids transfer out of the district currently? That I don't know. That's actually a great question. If anybody knows that, please do tell me. I would love to hear. I know people opt out to go to McCool for many of the reasons we just talked about, because guess what? A lot of community support. There you go. They're not, or they opt out and they go to what? Shickley, EMF, BDS.
Now, like,
and we're still keep in mind, and guys, guess what? We're still talking about sports there. It's not just education.
Tony, something to keep in mind before we get to this comment here. If we do get absolute school choice in this country, folks, the quality of your facility is going to suddenly matter a whole bunches.
A lot.
And
it's entirely possible.
That was just something that just came to me right now when we were like, oh my. But like, all right, Kendra Stevens, Lacey Kimbrough, a lot of kids transfer to good sports and scholarships. Yes. Wherever you get good coaches, basically. So Lynn West Jr., my 40-year comment is about Centennial. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Megan Leanne Kennedy, and I brought my kids to Fillmore Central.
There you go.
Kendra,
let's follow
Dylan,
up here. Dylan says, at least FC is being transparent about this issue instead of just raising the levy with zero public vote on it to put lipstick on a big old school buildings like said high levy district. No matter how many tubes of lipstick get put on, it's still a pig. And I think that was actually one of the more refreshing things, because you could kind of feel the tone of the school board at the meeting. They're like, we know this sucks.
Boy, I don't want to be here.
I don't know. We don't want to be here, but we really don't want to be, out here hand in hat trying to sell you on something that we know is going to affect you in a negative way. And it's going to be a while before you get to see the positives from it. Like I said, it's a thankless job. So,
well, I mean, like there was Gurmases and Lovegroves that were on that school board, and with your whole heart, they don't want to be asking the farm community this, okay? Like, farmers are we're a very tight-knit folk, okay? And trust me, I know with my whole heart, I was like, okay, if those two are sitting there asking this must be like Oliver Twist Dickensian desperate. Because I know farmers don't want to ask such things of their colleagues. Melinda goes, some families struggle to pay tax, make ends meet right now. Where are they going to get more money to stay afloat?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. We're all getting.
Believe you me, I ask that question every day. Yeah, because like I said, cost of building's not coming down. Cost of living has yet to really decrease in a monumental way that makes it like really, really affordable all of a sudden out of nowhere. Because guess what? That's not going to happen. Taxes go up taxes will go up regardless of this bond voting yes, voting no, or just going away completely. Taxes are absolutely going to go up. This is, like I said, this is just a concern no matter what. And we can paint the vote yes for the bond as the boogeyman in this scenario, but guess what? We're still going to get screwed and bent over by the government one way or another, and taxes are going to go up. So, I mean, like
by
it or
my
not,
math, unfortunately, I think it is 6 one hand, half dozen the other. Unfortunately,
that's
I
what
don't
I'm
like
saying.
it, but yeah,
you don't have to like it. Nobody likes
no,
it.
I'm just talking for the farmers. I don't really know how this is going. Like, if you go yes or no, how that's going to affect house taxes. I have no idea. I'm going to be honest with you. With there,
Lynn, because you've still got apartments and senior center-ish activities, and we're still using the absolute hell out of it for Geneva Athletic Department sports and for practices. And yeah, it's not good, but it's what we've got. Because why? Because the last bond didn't pass, and we had to use the building funds to make the wrestling room. And I'll be honest, complete transparency, 10 years ago, I was not in favor of the wrestling room. I wasn't. I thought it was a complete waste of money. I argued all day. Why? Because I thought it was absolute shit that the farmers were going to get taken to task and have to put a bunch of the money forward to do this. And I still think that. I still think it sucks that ag landowners are still going to get hurt by this a lot. I do. But I don't think this is as unnecessary as that one was. And after talking to people, I'm like, oh no, I can see at least why this is being brought to the table. And had we gotten that gymnasium and that bond, had that passed, this bond would not be as expensive. And that's just the cold hard truth. So this is what I'm talking about. You can have it now or you can have it later. These things are going to happen. They're going to happen regardless at some point. And you can hate sports all you want, but unfortunately, they do kind of drive elementary, middle school, and high school at all levels, because you have kids starting sports earlier. You have girls' sports now across the board in a lot of instances. So the student body, we're getting a lot more inclusive age-wise, and boys and girls. And
yeah, but
is it helping or not? That's not really up to me, but that's the reality we live in.
Like the reality is the new school will actually increase will help drive population numbers in Geneva.
And that's fine. I don't disagree with this.
There will be a sacrifice though for it.
Education is absolutely more important than sports. Yes, it is.
It should.
And how are you going to convince?
Anyways,
that's not what's on the ballot here.
Yeah,
education is not on the ballot here. But again, you're not going to attract the teachers that you seem to want to attract if you're going to get on social media and say, "No, we can't be passing no school bond." I know I'm putting it bluntly there, but
Tony, I got it. Like, no, put that comment back up, okay? Like, because this needs to be addressed. And I even agree with you, Ben, but let's be frank. You can name off the top of your head 10 people that they chose schools based on who was coaching what sport. I can't think of a single person that ever decided a school based on the English teacher. That's how they should, but I've never met a single person that chose their school based on an English teacher. Okay.
That's the reality we live in.
That's like, unfortunately, the coaches and the sports is the advertisement.
Well, there you go. In the door. Look at Hastings. Okay. How many schools have consolidated? How many of the smaller schools in Hastings consolidated? Look at your Adams Central. There's still a few publics, but you've got Adams Central, you've got your St. Cecilia's, and you want to talk about where your government money is going in the education system for high school, middle school. Is it going to the public schools or is it going to the private schools?
Yeah, but anyway, we got a lot of folks.
Yeah, we got more. We're gonna fire through a few more of these. Melissa says, "Hi, Lacey. It's not a wrestling room only. It's actually multi-purpose room used for multiple things. ACT testing. That's true. L Street practice. Yep. Sound sensations, cheer practice, and I believe they used it for a job fair, parent-teacher conferences, etc. And yeah, it's a big space. And yeah, there you have it. Why is this all about sports? It's not all about sports. And we just went over that. If we missed something that you want us to touch on again, please let us know.
Please.
Mad says, Lynn, they still use it, only fix what they have to. Yeah. Michelle, does the school get any state or federal money to help with this? And that's A great question, and unfortunately, what we're looking at is the same thing we were looking at with the old bond, with the
if
wrestling
this
room.
gets voted down, there is a chance that we become what's called competitive for NEIF funds. Now, okay, in theory, we become competitive for NEI, which is Nebraska Education Improvement Fund. Now, in reality, it should be NEIFLO, the Nebraska Education Improvement Fund for Lincoln and Omaha. Okay,
and you should also add an
we do not.
LMAO onto the end of that, because it's LMAO that we would have a chance at getting that.
Unfortunately, that's the reality of that. Is in theory we should
don't.
be eligible, but it seems to be that it goes to those places.
So yeah, if we can't address all the upgrade and maintenance costs, the building, and I wish I had the number. I don't, of what we have available to us in the building fund. I don't know. But is it enough to cover an HVAC system and a new electrical system, and what other complications come from renovating and upgrading that? Hell no, it's not. It's just not. And that's not sports. That's not education. That's just being state and government compliant to be in operation. That's the truth.
Reality is it's sort of like when the Dark Knight Rises, where he goes, Gotham City, we've not abandoned you. What does that mean? It means we're on our own.
Current 5th grade class is rivaling our 04 class in numbers.
Nice.
That's insane.
Must have been a real.
So we're growing in some aspects in some classes. Eric, class 01, baby. Absolutely.
Cowboy.
Lacey comes back. She says, I'm not anti-sports or any of the other extracurricular activities. What I'm saying is, why has money not been spent on things for the betterment of education to each and every student? Fair question. Like ceilings that don't leak. It just seems to me like we spend money on things that we want before things we need. And I'm not going to disagree with that, because I look at the high school now, and I look at specifically the football field, and I remember what state like the press box was and the bleachers, and not a lot has changed. Maybe some scoreboard upgrades, and that box is completely different. Like, wow, it's a complete culture shock. The first time I saw that thing, I'm like, it used to be just like a little hut sitting on top of the bleachers, and now it's like really nice. But yeah, I guess it depends where your priorities lie. And unfortunately, yeah, you're not wrong, Lacey, that sometimes, sports are going to be paid for first, because that's the shiny thing that you can show off to the other school district. And when I talk about keeping up with the Joneses, it's keeping up with the sports world. Even if we're not winning, when we're talking about winning on that side of things, it's how do we appear? How do we look? How do we look when they come here? You don't have to like it. I don't really love that aspect of it either. But no, education absolutely should be forefront, and that should be priority. But can you sell people on come here and live here and bring your kid here because we're going to have the best teachers because we say we have the best teachers? At the end of the day, who's going to say they had the best teacher? The student.
Yep. All righty, let's get going, because we got a lot of comments to catch up on, and but when we get done caught up with these comments, I want us to start going over like what the people need to do to actually vote on this if they want to. All right, Shane with an interesting comment. You can't keep your car brand new just by changing your oil. You have to buy a new one to have a new frame work. Plain and simple. Stuff wears out.
Yeah.
Lynn West Jr., would that cost savings of $800K go towards paying the bond?
I assume that would probably actually that might actually go into the building fund. I could be wrong about that. That's a great question. We should be marking some of these down. These are great questions.
Oh yes, yeah. Now I'm sure if some folks from the school board aren't watching, they're going to.
Yeah, and if anybody is and doesn't want to say like, hey, message me, and I would be more than happy to say it for you. I get it.
Yeah.
Let's go. Shoot, I'm lost where I'm at. Okay, here we go. Kendra says we're like 500 people in McCool. We're tiny. There you go. Yeah, it's not a big school, but sports and education, big, and a lot of community support. Sarah says, who gets to vote on this? Everyone in Fillmore County or just the people in our school district?
We will cover that soon.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And again, the ballot should be going out. I believe it's everybody within the voting district. Am I wrong? Anybody who would be impacted by the taxes should be getting a ballot on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they're not, that's a major fucking problem. Sorry, pardon my French. Danlin, just school district, I believe. Okay, well, impacted by the taxes for sure, I hope. Tracy, kids can opt out to EMF too, and there you go. And that's true. Like I said, a lot. I know people who opt out and go to McCool. Like if you have a problem with the direction of the sports or the lack thereof of maintenance of the Fillmore Central school system, or you're not expecting this to pass and you don't want to send your kid to a school that's falling apart, if that's your opinion, like I get it. And that's the beauty of it. You have that choice. If that choice is available to you, you are more than welcome and free to exercise that choice. Like nobody should be forced to do what they don't want to do, and especially when it comes to their kids. Like that's priority number one. Absolutely. Crop cover, McCool Junction population 477. Again, that speaks volumes to the community support. Like there it is. And we already talked about Shickley. Families also opt in to the Fillmore. Yeah, they do. Absolutely. It works both ways. 100%. Tracy, you have to be registered. And yes, that is true. Instructed a few people how to actually get registered to vote who were not registered before. So this is,
but we'll get to that once we catch up on comments. Tanera, this where we as a community need to come together. I would love to see the farmers market continue to grow, buying in bulk and sharing the cost.
Hey Phil, you need to give away some eggs.
Yeah. Actually, come tomorrow night to Sutton Community Church at 6:30. I'll be giving away farm fresh eggs, first come, first serve. Sutton
That's right.
Community
Free,
Church.
Folks. Free. We're doing our part here.
Yeah. Yep. Just trying to spread the good word. Megan, glad we did. Eric Johnson, sports keep me employed. Laughy face. Tanera Russ, I can't see Madwinner's comment, but I would beg you to look at research on education related to extracurricular activities.
Fair. And yeah, that's because between YouTube and Facebook, we've got the streaming multiple places, and it's not as interactive, Facebook and YouTube. So there you go. Yep. You can watch it on both, though. The Dawn, it's not like some of these kids aren't learning anything practicing and playing sports, though. In sports, you learn leadership skills, quick thinking skills, strategy, and communication. Yeah, and that's fair. And here's the thing. Not all kids are the same. Some kids are absolutely going to thrive and learn how to become more social, become more interactive with their peers, with their elders through some of these extracurricular activities that are more hands-on approach instead of being book smart. That's just the way kids are. Like I can see a study in contrast in my own kids on how they learn and how they develop. And it is true. Some kids are just better with hands-on, and maybe a little bit of sports is just a way to get them more focused, and it actually translates to them getting better grades because they understand, okay, now I get it. Now I have to listen to my elders, or I have to interact more kindly with my peers. I have to respect people. All kids are different. Every kid is going to be different. You can't just look at one and say, yep, buy the book. Here's the blueprints. There you go. Because if that were the case, boy, parenting would be sure as hell a lot easier, but it's not. All kids are different. And guess what? Like it or not, all these kids, they got a fraction of you in them too. Maybe a lot more than a fraction.
Now, with this comment here, with what Corb just had up, when he's talking about the way that they learn, here's the thing. I really don't give a crap about what the score is at the end of any game. I don't even care if it's a winning team. I care if the coach is actually able to impart life lessons to these kids. Like a great movie is Facing the Giants, if you've never seen it, where it's a football coach who he doesn't really care about the winning record of his team. He cares if these boys become men worthy of living a righteous life. Okay. And that's like, if we can actually get coaches like that, I don't care if we are 0, 0, 0, and 0 in all of our sports teams, so long as we can attract good coaches that actually teach these kids the lessons they need in life. Okay. And so that's my motivation there.
I'll get us caught up here kind of quickly. He follows up, playing sports is educational. Tanera says, wasn't the football field upgrades paid for by people? Yeah, I think a good chunk of that was actually. So that's very fair. This one, this needs to be addressed. Trevor says, has a countywide school ever been discussed? And I assume we're talking about all the towns in the county. Yes, absolutely, it has.
And all of the villages other than Geneva resist it viciously.
Here's the problem. Yes, Exeter, Milligan. Yeah, this has been this. I don't think we need to sugarcoat it. I think this is kind of the dream of Geneva as the county seat, is to have all the towns in Fillmore County be part of Fillmore Central. Because then, we would have to look at Melinda following up. We should build a new school at the air base so both towns have to travel. Because I actually think it's fair to say if that dream ever came to prosperity, I don't think we could sustain that at the current location. So, keep that in mind as well. But I don't think that's not going to happen anytime soon.
We're collecting towns like infinity stones.
I brought this up at the school board meeting to the school board, actually, because, how do you actually get one school board to vote, yes, let's consolidate with that neighboring Fillmore Central, and we'll just go ahead and dissolve our school board entirely because we'll be out of jobs then. If you consolidate, that does mean a portion of the other one does vanish. And especially if that means, a majority of the students are going to go here now. And guess where that here is? That here is going to be Geneva. It's the county seat. And like you said, Phil, it's the only one with static population.
Yeah.
That's why it has been discussed. And they did try this. But it's not going to happen because they like the status quo of not having to answer to one facility. Which I can't blame them.
Unfortunately, if you were to just have an AI just say, what should you do? They would say this, you know what I mean? Because it's the only town that's static, and they would say exactly that, a one county school district. But I can again, I live in Shickley. The folks of Shickley will fight that to the bitter end, okay? Because they know it's if that school leaves, this place is a ghost town in 15 years.
Phil, I'm gonna just I need to point this out right now. I wish I had the comment here. Can you try to find it? Was it Trevor that asked about the $800K in costs, or was that Lynn? I think it was Lynn. Let's address this comment right now. Yeah, here it is. Lynn asked, would the cost of savings of $800K go towards paying the bond? This was just messages to me. $800K would be reduced out of general fund. That is a different fund than the bond fund. So essentially, the general fund could be reduced by that amount. So it's really a net general fund levy before 55 cents, after 50. Bond levy is still estimated at 27 cents. And that's very technical terms, but no, that's out of the general fund, to put it plainly.
Peace to whoever that was. But all right, let's get back to the comment that we were at.
We're going to come back down. We were right here. Catherine says, Lacey, I'm reading an intervention teacher for Fillmore Central Elementary. The district has supplied reading interventions that are most current, research-based, without hesitation. They've also allowed training opportunities to ensure my skill set is most current with reading research. And I think that's probably being missed if we're focusing solely on sports being the big holdup, or if you think that sports are the focal point. I've talked to a lot of people and a lot of students and family members who are currently going to school, have gone to school recently, and they all actually do have a pretty positive mindset in terms of their education. I know there's people who had a bad experience themselves for whatever reason, or whether maybe their kids are currently having a bad experience. And I sympathize with that. I absolutely do. That's, God forbid, especially, it's even worse when it's your own kid. It is. But I've talked to a lot of people who've had positive experiences. Are you going to have a bad teacher or one that just rubs you the wrong way or somebody the wrong way? Absolutely. That's inevitable. That's in every school district. So, but I think there is a lot of opportunity. I think Fillmore Central is currently doing a pretty good job in terms of keeping up with today's technology and opportunity, like she's saying here. So I think that's fair.
Okay, so moving on to Lynn West. I just love saying Papa Emirates when I. Okay. Connie, I could be wrong, but last I heard, McCool wasn't accepting new out-of-district students. Is that wrong? If anybody knows, let us know in the comment if you got the inside track to that. I mean, we're talking schools. We just as well get into it. Okay, Danlin, he could sell his farm fresh eggs and pay for a big part of the bond cost. Yep. Well, yeah,
no,
like
no,
I said,
nope. Free, Phil. You got to keep them free.
I give them away for free. At Sutton Community Church tomorrow night at 6:30, I'll have them laid out. First come, first serve. Come on in, farm fresh eggs for free. Steve goes, not everyone whose taxes will be affected by this gets to vote. If you don't reside in the school district but own property in the school district, you don't get to vote but will still pay the taxes. So like me, for example, I own property in the district, but my home here is in Shickley, so I actually won't be allowed to vote. So this is me making my voice heard in my own way. So thank you very much, Stephen. Kendra goes, Connie Eckler, I haven't heard this, but I'm also just a parent, not part of the school board. But last I knew, we've gotten new kids from York. Well, thank you. And we want to grow and continue to grow and make our town known, but also what we can hold as well. But I don't know for sure answer for this, but can find out. Yeah, like trust me, schools love getting a nice little handful of transfers from out, so long as they're great students, because it's nothing but a plus for the school. Mad Winner, I'm not saying sports are important. I'm saying why can't we upgrade more eventually?
And that's fair.
Fortunately, I think the eventually, like Tony's point is that the eventually is here.
And yeah, I think that's kind of the
that's T's point. Now, Tony,
you can't just go, yeah, we need to upgrade them sports, because anytime you say that, somebody's gonna be like, oh, do we really need to upgrade the sports? Well, at some point, yeah, you do, unfortunately, and maybe it is now. Why shouldn't it be while you're already looking at a bunch of other upgrades? Like that's kind of the time to do it, unfortunately.
Beat me to the draw. Steve goes, it just depends on the current class size. And Brittany is going, yes to some, whatever it is.
Yeah, sorry, yes, we're so behind.
Yes, we're with you. Kendra, Steve, thank you, Steve. Figured you'd know. That's crazy. Connie Eckler just spoke to a teacher. That is not true. We just got new kids from the district. Excellent. Thank you. I live blocks from the high school to the south. You think city will fix gravel road to make the school look better?
I'd like to see anybody fix the gravel roads, like anybody.
Okay, he wanted to say evenly.
Sure.
I'm not saying sports are important. I'm saying why can't we upgrade more evenly?
Okay. Well, so we're talking like across the board, because that would be an even higher number.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I would love to see teachers being emphasized more. Like it's the old kind of trope of like we should pay our teachers more than our NFL athletes. Sure. Like yes, but like it's the unfortunate reality is that our market in our current world just doesn't work out like that. So to me, the unfortunate reality is well, T. I'm gonna be real frank here. Geneva, Fairmont. The question before us is, we can make Geneva a growing, prosperous town. It will require a sacrifice on the part of the people of Fairmont.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a significant sacrifice. Now, that is a question that when we lay our heads down on our pillows tonight, we need to think of what the future looks like. Think of 30 years from now. At the end of this note, think of 50 years from now. What will Fairmont and Geneva look like on both ends of that particular fate, if you will? Now, there's a comment. I'm going to let you get to this comment from Brandy.
Brandy says, as a parent, don't we always want better for our kids? Absolutely. Then why try to prevent the most transformative years of their lives from being improved? People have no problem driving brand new vehicles, buying brand name clothes, but let's complain about paying more towards our children's education and future generations. Now,
Grant, I'm not going to say exact numbers, but like a lot of farmers have done the numbers. it's equaling almost people's wages a year, depending on how much.
Sure.
So like this is real money.
Depending on like how, depending on how
So-
you fall in the ag land tax
So
bracket.
if this
like some
does get
people,
passed, please be grateful. Okay, don't be gloating or boastful to your
Yeah.
fellow farmers in your community. Okay, like this is not something that like that would be the way I would put this. To the
this
community.
isn't a presidential election. There's no gloating about this.
Yeah. No matter
'Cause I
who
think you said
wins or
this at
who
the beginning.
loses, we all have to be townsfolk with each other when this is all said and done, no matter win, lose, or draw. So
Yeah,
and yes,
you
well
said
said,
this
Brent.
at the beginning, Phil. This is we're still a community at the end of this, and all the options are bad options, and that's important. And unfortunately, I'll say this now, like a lot of the interaction on social media has been it's gotten ugly to certain points, and we're still neighbors, we're still part of the same community, and I understand people are going to hold grudges over past things or future things, and in
Me
this
even
too.
going back reading
But-
some of my old posts, they read rather aggressive because
Sure.
that's just how I am on social media.
But this comment specifically, like this is very well said, and this is very well thought out, because this is super important, especially like I have I have brothers and sisters. My oldest sister is graduating this year, will not get to enjoy any of these upgrades should they pass. However, I have 4 kids, my youngest being 4, my oldest being 9 currently. Absolutely will be able to enjoy these upgrades. I am a citizen of Geneva. If this passed, this is going to be pretty big in terms of saving time and money for me in terms of transportation. But that's not the point. Like, you've also got to think about your fellow citizen, right? Is this going to be good on the whole? Now, I'm reminded solely of going to the meeting on Sunday and listening to people talk about when they went to school. Now, mind you, we graduated 20 years ago, Phil, last year. Almost 21 years ago now already. And we were in middle school when the consolidation happened in 99, 2000. And if you listen to the people talking at the community board meeting on Sunday about when they went even farther and further before that, you kind of got to listen to, oh, this is how the school system has evolved over the last 100 years, whatever. And it just kind of reminds you that this is not just about you and what you're going to be paying in the next 5 years. This is also about especially if you've got kids, or your neighbors or your family members have kids, you've got nieces and nephews, whatever. This is directly going to impact them. So I'm going to be lying if I said that this is not something like, this is I'm going to pay taxes too, just like you. Not like farmers. Don't get me wrong. Mine's minuscule compared to some people. But my kids will absolutely be able to benefit this. And as a Geneva citizen, even more than especially those who live in Fairmont. So I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it like I'm not going to benefit.
Folks who live in Geneva, you're going to get a disproportionate benefit, especially if you have children, because like you're going to be charged a few $100s a year in taxes for your children to have access to a multi-million-dollar facility. Okay, I can understand the appeal, T. Like, let
me finish this thought though, because I think it's important. The thing is, if anybody currently in this system or in this county that sends their kids to this school system, if you ever want to have a chance, if you ever want your kids to have a reason to come back here after college or after they graduate high school, you've got to make sure, don't we, that there's something for them to come back to. I think that's important. And if they do come back here to raise a family, because I think that's a huge selling point, especially in this community. You look at the rest of the world and the decay that it's in, and the conflicts and the turmoil in surrounding states of this country. This is a great place to raise a family. You want them to have a school system that they can raise a family in, and B, do you want to alleviate that cost from you onto them? Because if we don't pass this now, guess what? Eventually, it's going to come down to our kids to burden that cost, because guess what? They're already going to have to burden some costs. So the more that we don't take of that burden, the more that it's going to fall on them. and when they're trying to start a family, or they're going to try to upstart a farm, ag land.
Let the trouble come in my time. So it's
I'm just saying, like, these are
very Thomas Jefferson of you.
I'm just saying though, but it's true. It's absolutely true, because if I know, I would love to have my kids around here. I'm not saying I want them to absolutely come back here. They're allowed to do whatever they want in this life. But if you want them to have a chance to come back to a small community and live a safe, happy, fruitful life, we need to have a good school community, and we need to not have them burdened with, oh, well, shit, now we need to have 3 buildings built, and guess what? It's going to cost you $9,000 in taxes a year, and you just own a house.
Unfortunately, Melinda, this is when I say all the options are bad. This really isn't a matter of education. The education isn't going to change good, bad, or indifferent by the building of this initially. Okay, its outcome might attract some better teachers down the road, but initially, good, bad. What this is an effort towards community survival. Okay, we forget the fact that the baby boomers had a lot of babies. Okay, Gen X and millennials didn't. Okay, there's not enough of them to replace,
and that's why we're currently seeing the smaller class sizes, Phil.
Yes, and so unfortunately, this is kind of where we're getting. Bad options. Which sandwich do you want to eat? Michelle, some buy new cars and some buy brand names, but not everyone. One farmer or another post said he would be paying an extra $8,000 per year. That's a lot of money.
Go ahead, Phil. Take this one.
Like I'm not gonna say precisely the number that I'm gonna be paying per year, because you can do the math back as to what my acres are. And my dad always said, don't ever tell people how many acres you farm. That's like saying, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and say is that, like, it's real money. It's real, it's a considerable amount, and this is the kind of money that could be getting paid to people, could be doing something else in the economy. Now it's going to be doing this. And it's one of those opportunity costs in the economy. If this passes, I hope it's worth it. I hope if this passes, I pray this is as successful as the people who put this forward say it is, because we're pretty much putting our chips in as a community to this. No, I know what you meant, Michelle. No problem.
Mad says, are the kids going to want to pay the... No! That's the thing. If you show me somebody who wants to pay taxes, I will show you a government
Michael Moore
plan.
That's it. Michael Moore. He's the only guy that's happy to pay taxes. Danlin Enberg, just curious, why is this designed so that farmers are bearing so much of the financial burden?
I'll let you take this. I think you even spoke with a board member kind of about this exact thing, right?
Well, what do you mean?
To a lesser extent, like what are we talking about in terms of if this passes, yes or no? The financial burden on the farmers.
Like, now, if it passes, yes, it's going to be primarily on farmers overwhelmingly. The no vote, I'm not actually, I feel if somebody's listening, message Tony, let us know what would be the primary tax burden on the no side, because I actually don't know. I'm not going to speak out of turn here, but the primary tax burden for this will fall on the farmers because they own the most acres. And so that's just the way that's going to work. And that's
not something that's going to change.
Education has always been paid for in Nebraska. That's just like since time in memoriam. Like we're a very strange,
we live in Nebraska.
Like the reason why North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska's books work is because we are a low population, high tax agricultural economy. Okay, so there's actually making something that produces something with a low population and a high tax rate.
Phil, this is a message I'm receiving. It is designed this way because that is how the Nebraska unicameral has set it up.
That's just
the board. The board did not decide this. The state did hundreds of years ago.
That's
this is not a Fillmore Central, Fillmore County exclusive thing. Again, I think it's important to note that we do lose sight of the fact that there are so many counties in the state of Nebraska, so many consolidated schools already, and they're enjoying the exact same benefits / detractors that this one is. Like, this is not solely on Geneva, Fairmont, Grafton, Fillmore Central. It's not.
Yeah, but that's just how we've
Again,
been doing
the
this.
state's not just slinging out cash ready to make upgrades. They're just not.
Yeah, like I said, the NEIF in theory we should, but we don't. It's like that Dark Knight line, Gotham, we haven't forgotten you. What does that mean? It means we're on our own.
Paul says, educationally speaking, Fillmore Central has already been recognized as having top ratings statewide for the last 2 years. And again, I think that's important to note. Like, if you've got a personal gripe with a teacher or a couple of teachers or some administrators, like, I get it. That's how that's how things go. That's small towns. But numbers are important, and especially if we're grading on a scale. And those aren't bad numbers right there. Kendra follows up where he was said, Tony, thank you. I appreciate that. Definitely living in a small town, you want people and we do. And this goes double for Fairmont. You know, again, I'm fond of Fairmont myself. I don't want to see it fade away, but yeah, you want people to come back, but they need to have a reason.
We need to attract new teachers because, Tony, unfortunately, Mr. Westover isn't going to be around forever. I mean, if we had him for another 30 years, it'd be fine. He could do most of the things. But
I'm still scared to walk on the grass, Phil. Kenzie says, you're right. A new building doesn't necessarily mean a better leaving environment, but it does mean more opportunities, more time for teacher and counselors to serve student more effective, and that creates a better environment. And like it or not, that will attract people who aren't connected to the community to come here. Like, if they don't have roots here, how are you going to get people to come here who have no roots here? And that's the ugly truth about all small towns in this state, especially.
Unfortunately, it's a school that swings above its weight class.
Yes.
That's the only way you do it. Now, again, be grateful for the things that will be sacrificed along the way. You should, give a little extra.
Yes. Best bus driver ever. Hang on. I'm going to try it.
Oh, nice.
If you know, you know. Lynn says,
I think I almost did it there.
Those dumb gambling video games that showed up in the last few years, where does that money go? Lottery to, that's another thing. Tax money in the state with lottery passing and other things we're trying to pass. We would like to see some of that trickling down to the school system for sure. Has it yet? No, I don't really feel it has. Yeah. So hopefully down the road.
We'll see.
Get it together, Pillin. Get it together. Mad Weiner, if only people would be attracted to a town for better work.
I mean, unfortunately, if you want to go that route, Geneva's the only place with factories.
Yeah.
Okay? Actual factories producing things.
Tanera, the issues with the names and teachers and not just small town issues, school are microcosms within the communities.
Now, the ethanol plant's the exception, but that's basically holding up Fairmont, is it not?
Megan says, you're out of the game, good old Mr. Westover. That's right.
So we need to find the new Mr. Westover. Unfortunately, we need like 3 of those. So we're gonna need so that's just the way that works. Everybody knows exactly where. Now, Tina, how do you were given more information on like how to actually vote in all of this? So
so first off, if you are not registered to vote, it's super easy to do. Literally, it's the easiest thing in the world to do. You can do it online. I did it 20 years ago when I went and got my new license when I turned 18. But again, that was 2 decades ago. You can do it online now. You can do it from your phone. You can jump on there. Like, literally, you are teetering in the window where you might not get your voter ID, but this is all by mail. So as long as you're registered, you should be able to do it if you're within the district. And I actually find that concerning that only specific people this is going to impact, but not every. I hate that idea, but it is what it is. I can't change that. You can go online and just type in, literally, how do I register to vote in Nebraska? And what comes up is nebraska.gov, and it's going to be voter registration portal. Welcome to Nebraska online voter registration. Hit continue. And it will walk you through it in the easiest of layman's terms that you can imagine. Like, it's not hard at all. As long as you can't screw up your address, you're not lying. Like, that's pretty much what it boils down to. I personally am a nonpartisan registered voter. You can register as whatever party you want to. And if you register as a Democrat or Republican, you'll be able to vote in those primaries. Simple as that. Register however you want. And then also, great idea, you aren't tied to that. Vote however you want, but vote informed. That's the important thing. But the votes will be coming in through the mail, and you've got to have those back in by March 11th. So, and there are drop boxes, especially if you live in Geneva, the one on the back side of the south side of the courthouse. You just go ahead, you take your ballot, you drop it in there, and you get it done. It's very simple.
So, T, we're going to find out ultimately what happens on this. Have you heard from anybody else in regards to the board? Because I'm really curious if there's a no vote.
I had a few comments throughout this, but we already addressed them.
Okay.
I think what we need to do, we're going to do another one of these, I think. We're going to go to the school board meeting. Both of us are going to go on Sunday. And we need to go back through some of these comments because there was a few really good comments that I'd really like to ask the board members just directly to get a good idea.
Now, T, that would be Sunday. What time?
2 p.m. Yeah.
And where will that be?
That's at the high school. It's this building.
Right, not the middle school this time. At the high school, Sunday, 2 p.m., folks. Be there. So, the school board's like, Phil, I don't know if we needed a pro wrestling outro.
And if it is too late to get you registered and get it all solidified before the vote, like I know we're like right there in that window, but you should do that anyway. Like even if you're just voting on local issues like this, you don't care about presidential elections and stuff like that. Local issues like this is specifically why you need to register to vote.
We get Phil Toy. Thank you for your time and effort. Like I said, I'm an elementary teacher. I'm also alumni. My husband is also a teacher and coach. We love our jobs and want the best for our community and students. Thank you, Catherine.
Absolutely.
Stream meets for the folks. Where can we meet? We'll really good comment on Facebook post. Now, again, folks, keep in mind, we are all going to be in this together. There will be sacrifices. And like I said at the very beginning, I want you all to keep in mind Romans 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as living and holy sacrifices, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove that which is the will of God, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. And God bless every last one of you within the sound of my voice, folks, because no matter what happens, we will still be one Fillmore County. So, folks, as I'm known to say around here, all that being said, thank you for joining us this evening here on Big Buckin' Empire for this report, this very special report. And there will be more coming. Tony and I are either going to go live Sunday afternoon or Monday evening to give you an update as to what we found out at the meeting. So be sure to subscribe right here. You can, of course, find me, Phil KOE, at KOE Nation on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. It's very on brand, folks. Yes, KOE Nation. And yes, thank you all for being here. Thank you all. God bless every last one of you. And like I said, Sutton Community Church, it's on Phillips Avenue in Sutton, Nebraska. If you come there 6:30, there will be farm fresh eggs, free, first come, first serve. God bless every last one of you. Tony G, my indomitable broadcast partner, take it away.
Thank you everybody for watching. Like, this was a great turnout, especially like I wanted this to be cordial, civil, and for the most part, everybody was very, 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 very nice, well behaved in the comments. We had a great turnout. Really appreciate it. If you want to make sure to subscribe wherever you watch this, whether it was YouTube or Facebook, hit subscribe where you're at, where you're watching this now. We're going to go to the meeting on Sunday. We're going to look through some of these comments, write down some of the best questions, try to get some answers for you, even ahead of time, if possible, because I think transparency is the most important thing when it comes to a vote, especially when it's concerning your livelihood and your money. So, again, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. And if you've got any questions for us, let us know. Talk to us. We're more than happy to talk to you. But we're going to do another one of these, especially after Sunday at the next and the final board meeting before the vote happens. So all that being said, like you said, Phil, we will catch you on the next one. Appreciate it very, very much. And yeah, this was fun. So we'll talk to you on the next one.
Peace. What a concept.